Who is responsible for our online safety? Is it the government? Is it cybersecurity companies? Is it the banks? Or should we all be taking cybersecurity safety in our own hands? Don't go away, we'll be right back. Today we are talking to Dr. Zoran Mitrovic about cybersecurity. And welcome back. This is episode 10 of the conversation Online Safety. I'm your host, Bridgetti, Banda, and we're talking to Dr. Zoran Mitrovic about cybersecurity today. So here is a scenario that will set the scene for our conversation with Dr. Mitrovic. An employee receives an email from their CEO directing them to immediately purchase gift cards using their personal security card. The email convincingly describes an urgent need to have this done immediately and to bypass usual security protocols. And the company will reimburse the employee. Further, the employee is directed to reply to the email with the gift card security codes to the CEO for safekeeping immediately after the purchase. The employee does as they are directed. And when the employee then later submits a reimbursement request, it comes to light the CEO never made this request to start off with. What happened here? The employee fell for a fairly low-tech but very costly scam. The employee spent thousands in personal funds, and now the company has to decide how it's going to respond. Should they let the employee be personally responsible? Should they reimburse the employee? And what corrective action can be taken against the employee? Let's invite Dr. Mitrovic to the show. Zoran, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Greetings to you, Bridgetti, and the viewers.
I'm going to say a warm welcome to all our viewers on Facebook, and also welcome to our viewers on LinkedIn. If you've got any questions for us, we are monitoring the comments both on Facebook and on LinkedIn. Dr. Zoran Mitrovic is a cybersecurity specialist, and so if you have any questions for him, please do join us in the conversation. Let us know where you are watching from. It'd be great to know where you are joining us from. And also put hashtag live or hashtag replay so we know whether you're watching us live or on the replay. Zoran, you heard the scenario about this employee receiving an email, thinking it's from the CEO, making the purchase, and now trying to get a reimbursement, and then they discovered that this was a scam. So looking at the scenario, should the employee be personally responsible? Should the company reimburse them? What corrective action can a company take in this instance? What is your opinion of this kind of scenario?
Well, let me start with a philosophical answer. Well, it depends. It depends. All depends. Yeah. Depends. First of all, if that employee is aware and trained to recognize that kind of schemes. If there are some cybersecurity policies in that organization, there are two things. If policy is there and employee is not aware and not trained, they cannot claim his responsibility. But if policies are there, if policies are spread throughout the organization properly and explained, and the employee, that employee is trained properly, then it is his fault. Otherwise, it's organizational fault, and they cannot claim his responsibility. So, yeah.
Do you find that, in your experience, that often policies are there, but they're not enforced, and often employees are not really trained to understand the policies and why they're so important?
Yeah, it is fairly often that people have a policies and they are just gathering dust somewhere. So there are two actually different cases. One is that there is a policy, but not known to employees. Good policy, not known to employees. And there are some sloppy policies that people don't want to read. So it is actually organizational responsibility to first to make conscious policies that will inform employees what is allowed, what is not allowed, and it does not use jargon, but plain English that people can understand. And not to be too long that people are just putting off by that length and they just switch off and they do not read it yet. So there's often policies are not read by people. If you now make a survey and ask people how many of them really read your Facebook policy, privacy policy, or the other policies, they will say yes. When you ask them what is there, they cannot explain. So that's the case in organizations as well.
So it's kind of, a scenario where you, the employee, as the human being, can be the weakest link in an organization.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it is well known by both cybersecurity professionals and hackers that humans are the weakest link in cybersecurity. If you can say in percentages, about 80% of successful hackings are happening through people, not through technology. Technology is advancing, yeah, but again, people are there that are using technology, and hackers know that, yeah. Then cybersecurity chain is the weakest than humans sitting. So we have to pay much more attention to human beings, to outsiders, insiders, etc., than to technology. By the way, technology can be patched. Humans, very difficult to be patched because we are human beings.
Yeah, so it's not for a lack of technology per se. It's more the human, the human connection that is the weak link, and perhaps companies should spend more time making sure that their employees understand. So how exposed would you say businesses are to social media security breaches? We live in an environment where people are active on their devices all the time. You have events and where the natural, or it's become the norm to bring your own device to events, to meetings. Bearing that in mind, employees they may block Facebook, for example, just Facebook as one of the social media platforms. They may block it on the company intranet, but you have staff bringing their own devices, sometimes bringing their own laptops, sometimes bringing their own smartphones, and then they may connect to the company's Wi-Fi. So how exposed are businesses?
Very much, very much. It depends on their connectivity, and many businesses are very connected to the internet, yeah, so exposure is huge. But let me just make a digression. what actually hackers exploit. The hackers, by the way, there are different hackers. White hat, gray hat, black hat hackers. We're talking about those so-called black hat hackers that make a harm to people. What they exploit? They exploit human weaknesses like fear. For example, somebody tells you your bank account is compromised. Please urgently send your details, and people just fall for that. Yes, send the password and username, etc., etc. They exploit the obedience, like it was the case in your scenario story. People are obedient, and then particularly when authorities in question, directors, managers, presidents, whatever, and they do stupid things, not thinking critically. Then greed is also exploited, and helpfulness. People are sometimes very, very helpful, unnecessary helpful, etc., etc. So that's used by hackers. Going back to your question, uh, what, how they use social media, first of all, in many ways, but the main way is for reconnaissance, for getting information about potential victims. So that's why it is very important to protect organizations and people on social media. And there is no hacking like in Hollywood movies. That somebody sits here, using laptop or cell phone and just frantically typing, and he is in, and that's hacking. It's not that. All successful hackers do their homework, and the first task is reconnaissance, gathering information about people. So social media are perfect platform for that. And what's happening? Going back to your story, uh, there are few type of phishing. I don't know if people are aware about that. There is a phishing, there is a spear phishing, there is a whaling, there is a smishing using SMSs, there is a phishing using a phone, etc., etc. I'm talking about this. Phishing is when they send their emails, bogus emails in bulk. But spear phishing when they choose a particular people to attack, and that's from your scenario stories. They do it usually Fridays when people are ready to go to weekend, and they then send a message that looks email that looks or message that looks legitimate, and people are thinking much more about weekend and being obedient, etc., etc. And they are not checking, and then they can do dangerous things. So social media uh, uh, platform is a perfect way for data collecting.
I think, people need to, or companies need to be more aware that, social media isn't going to go away. It's here to stay, and that their employees are active on social media. Um, and that, perhaps they should not try and, I think trying to forbid people from accessing social media is like daring people to do it, and they're going to do it anyway. People are going to find ways of working around organizational cybersecurity policies. So, what do you think is the best way then to train employees to have a security mindset and to mitigate the risk of them trying to circumvent organizational security policies?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, prohibiting it is not an option. It would be like prohibiting alcohol in America in 20s, 1920s. Yeah, so it just went under the radar. That it was illegal, but people still drinking and buying, etc., producing, etc., etc. So technology in general and social media in general, they are neutral in their nature, but the use of technology and social media is not neutral. It depends how people use. So you are completely right. It's not going to go away. People have to learn how to use it, beneficially. That means to use it productively, but to use it securely. So we're talking about, for example, talking about fourth industrial revolution. If there is no secure use of any technology, including social media, there is no benefit. We cannot talk about because it will be. Let me just use some metaphor. If you have a good cow that produces 25 liters of milk, and just after that, they just kick it and spill it. There is no any benefit here. So, uh, what is the best way is to educate people. First, to make them aware. But that awareness is not enough here. Uh, we should rather use the term applied awareness, if I can say it that way. What does it mean? It means you are aware, but you're not applying it. There is no benefit. Let me again, do some comparison. How many people are aware that driving and using cell phone is prohibited and dangerous? I suppose many. But
Correct.
how many applying?
Mm,
Not too many. You see, we've got carnage on our roads in South Africa. So, so the same is with cybersecurity. If people are aware but not applying that awareness, it does not mean much. Or even if they are trained, but not applying skills and knowledge, it does not mean much. Then your direct question was how to rectify it, how what we can do um, to enhance the cybersecurity in organizations. The simple answer is culture, changing culture
mm.
and introducing cybersecurity culture. Uh, please carry on. Please carry on. You wanted to
I
ask
like,
something?
I like that. Changing the culture of the organization where there's awareness to such an extent that people realize that it's a mindset change. It's not just a fact of just having laws and regulations isn't going to stop people, but if you can change their mindset about why it's important and how that relates to their job security, for example, because if the company's security is compromised, it can compromise the business and it compromises their job security. So if one can somehow find a way of creating a culture where people are constantly aware of cybersecurity, that could be the way that we need to go.
Yes. Yes, that's the way to make a cybersecurity resilient organization. But it's easier to say than done, because we are dealing with humans. Changing
Correct.
culture primarily means changing uh, people behavior, and
Yeah.
then changing behavior depends on habits. So again, we going back. Cybersecurity much more about psychology and sociology than technology, but they must combine, of course. They must combine everything what we know and what we use to make a cyber resilient organization and nations first. For example, people use bad habits of people. Say, you've got people that get messages on the screen that certain applications are not secure to use, and they're still using that, and they're making bad habits because that application helps them to do everyday job, but it is not sanctioned by IT department and actually belongs to so-called shadow IT. So it's very dangerous, and hackers are using that. Let me just tell you this, Some research showed recently that uh, daily hackers distribute about 156 million phishing messages all over the world. 56 million messages. And but if I can correctly recall, about 80,000 people fall victims. It,
Wow.
and
Wow.
it is increased from last year to this year, and it increased about 300%. So bad habits are exploited very well.
Unbelievable. I want to move on to my next question, but before I do that, I just want to give a shout out to our audience: Melina from Germany, Alcibi from Namibia, Sebastian from Australia, and also Tish. She is also in the US somewhere. Welcome to everyone there. And Sebastian's made some very interesting comments. He's basically underscored what you said. Sebastian says in their brand, they give people the freedom. We let them know the responsibility and that they trust them, and it has created a culture that keeps the brand and employees happy and trusting. But it's having that constant engagement with your employees. It's not a once-off saying, here's the list. These are rules and regulations, and that's it. It's not a one and done kind of process when it comes to cybersecurity. And unfortunately, I think the trend is that companies don't spend time, money, and energy in cybersecurity until they have a security breach, at which point it is too late. The breach has already happened. It's like car insurance. Should I get car insurance? Should I get personal insurance? It's too expensive until you actually need it. And I think that's the kind of thing that happens in companies. They sort of, I can't afford this in my business. Yes, you have to. It's a must, because once the breach has happened, it's too late.
You're completely right, yeah, but the key word here is trust. If you can trust your employees, yes, but when breach happens, then the legal repercussions come. Then you have to go to courts and you have to prove something here. So trust is fine. Trust is a good base, very good base for any kind of security, including cybersecurity, but it must be regulated. Yeah, that aspect of organizational cybersecurity, you have to have a policy. You have to have a policy. How they can prove that the employee did something wrong, like from the beginning of your story, of your scenario. They cannot do that. Yeah, there is one rotten apple. It's enough here to spoil everything else. Yeah, so they have to have regulation. Trust is a fine, and I am in favor. First of all, having a good team, trustworthy team, but there must be regulation. Otherwise, good people can do stupid things or dangerous things because of their circumstances, changing circumstances. It could be some addiction, it could be financial difficulties, it could be blackmailing, it could be anything. Yeah. So it cannot be completely based on trust. Trust, yes, but must be sanctioned somehow.
Back to regulation. Zoran, I'd like to move on to another issue or scenario. Our social media platforms, and I'm going to single out Facebook because it's the largest social media platform.
Yes.
So Facebook allows people, to create fake profiles with ease. So scammers notoriously operate with free reign on the Facebook platform. They're allowed to send out endless friend requests. Currently on Facebook, there's no limit on friend requests. So scammers do basically what you call phishing. They send out thousands of friend requests on a daily basis to unsuspecting victims to befriend them. Syndicates have fake accounts, and so one account is shut down. They've got 100 other spare accounts and in order to ply their trade, they use stolen pictures and stolen identities to lure unsuspecting victims. Hello, Marcello on LinkedIn from Atlanta. Thanks for joining us. So they use stolen pictures and fake identities to lure what they call clients on Facebook. So my question to you is, how difficult is it for a social media platform like Facebook to prevent this by verifying their users and to prevent the creation of fake profiles? How difficult is it for a company to have a verification process in place?
It is still very difficult because Facebook has got about 2 billion users, if I'm not mistaken. Manually, it is impossible, of course. Yeah, that's why they're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to try to control that. But in my mind, technology is still in an infant phase, in a baby phase. So So they, as much as they use artificial intelligence and machine learning, they cannot control so big amount of users about user accounts here. So I don't think they can, not yet. They can control that properly. So that's why they introduced that you have to report somebody that scans you or trying to bully you or whatever, or it's fake news, etc., etc. So it is much more now some kind of mutual effort of users and providers, social media platforms, social media content, etc., etc. So only together we can do something. But it is not advisable to rely on the Facebook or other media to mind your security, your privacy and your security. So again, people must be aware and trained somehow, not just organizations. I've written here some article about, I did some research in South Africa and Namibia about citizen awareness. That's a disaster. People and organizations are not enough aware, but citizens are completely unaware. And please, everybody's got your smartphone now. Now the smartphones are getting cheaper, and everybody's got smartphone using, then accessing your social media platforms. So, so it must be awareness among citizens and among workforce if we want uh, to create the digital society and cybersecurity culture at national level. We're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. Without properly trained and aware citizens, what can go wrong here? Everything what we do can be just jeopardized. So, so that's my a little bit broader answer to simple question. Yeah, Facebook cannot do it alone, or other social platforms.
Yeah. So basically, it is the responsibility of each person. Now, I know that one of the challenges I've personally encountered, and I know this is a challenge for many others out there who report fake profiles, is that Facebook uses a bot system. Now, I can speak from personal experience where you report what you can see and what you know is obviously a fake profile. But that submission to Facebook isn't seen by a real human. They use a bot to monitor those reports, and literally 9 times out of 10, you'll get a response back from Facebook's bot saying that the profile doesn't qualify to be deleted because it doesn't break Facebook's community standards. But that's a bot response, and that's a failure on a technology failure. So for me, it highlights the need to do more um, to prevent the creation of fake profiles, and secondly, to report fake profiles more efficiently, or to make the handling of fake profile reporting more efficient.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but we're going back to our discussion. That bot is actually working using artificial intelligence and machine learning. So it's just a baby machine that cannot understand what you're actually saying. They definitely cannot do that. Yeah, if there would be 2 billion people or 200 million people receiving our complaints, it would be a little bit different. Yeah. But yeah, technology is, as I said, still not at that stage that it can recognize really what we say and what we want. Yeah. That's why we have not to rely on technology. For example, if a good car maker makes a car and you buy that car and they say this is a safe, but if we as a drivers doing dangerous things, they cannot protect us. So it's just loose a comparison, but that's it. Yeah. So it's our responsibility how we drive the Facebooks and the Instagrams and LinkedIn's, etc., etc.
So, it always comes back to the human element being the weakest link, and the fact that we need to be aware of the fact that, as humans, We need to become more cyber savvy. My next question or scenario to you, Zoran, is Facebook ads is a huge part of its revenue model, and businesses use this. They put adverts on Facebook because there's so many users. What are the chances that this could increase the risk exposure for businesses and entrepreneurs? Because the ads then are not just flashed to bona fide users, it's also flashed to fake accounts managed by scammers. What is the risk exposure there?
But it's the same risk exposure like on other internet platforms. Although the social media are getting more and more popular. For example, Facebook has introduced some policy that prevents advertising some organizations, people, companies that are already they're marked as dangerous or risky, etc., etc. But again, it's just policy. What people do with ads, with any ads, social media and any internet ads, they can exploit it. Yeah, they're adding something to call adware or malware in the ads. So you can, for example, advertise your business, and hackers can just copy what you have advertised and impersonate you, and just add some malware and just spread it. And people are just copying and pasting on Facebook. You say somebody has 2,000 friends. Please, 2,000 friends. It's not possible. Yeah. They even don't know 10% of those people what they do and what their intentions, etc., etc. So people are just copying and pasting. Yeah, the other people are just clicking. They don't have a time. They want to see how many friends are there, and they just don't have time. And they click, 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 and they spread their malware using ads. Then it can be used in many ways. And just spread malware, like a backdoor to your system, like sending ransomware, like acquiring your system using your system as a bot in a botnet for distributed denial of services attacks. But, by the way, recently I was writing an article titled "My Toaster is under attack." Then people are not reading. They said to me, "Stupid thing. Who is interested in my toaster? And if I burn 2 pieces of bread, who cares?" And I had to explain to them, it's not about, of course, we're talking about smart toasters that are linked to the internet. Yeah. It's not about your toast. It's about access to your network. The same happening when people redirect you from your Facebook ad to some malicious website, and then they just get into your network and they can do anything. Yeah.
My next question to you is, people are still very ignorant about scamming and the process of scamming and cybercrime. Generally, when people talk about getting scammed, they think of one lone scammer that's sitting in an internet cafe somewhere, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Scamming is never done in isolation. Scams are run by syndicates. So even though they use a picture, that is not representative of one person. There's a whole organization and a syndicate that's behind all the scamming process. They use mind control. And it's a very well run operation that is run to military precision. And so once the scamming process begins, there's very little that can be done to stop the scamming process once it gets to that point. And people like doctors, nurses, school teachers, policemen, psychologists, all professional people, have fallen victim to the scamming process, and yet no one seems to be concerned, or no one seems to know enough about this type of cybercrime, because when people hear about scams, they think about people who are ignorant, people who are gullible, people who are lonely, people who are stupid. What do you think can be done to raise the profile of cybercrime beyond people thinking that it's just stupid people that get scammed?
Yeah, again, you're completely right. Yeah, as we discussed here a little bit earlier, it's about reconnaissance. Yeah, people are not doing it just by chance. Yeah, good hackers and organizations, syndicates, and particularly military hackers. Yeah, from US, from the US, from China, from Russia, and from North Korea, Israel. They're excellent. Yeah, you cannot protect yourself against them. Yeah, but again, yeah. The simplest answer is fetch the people, fetch the people in organizations at national level also. Yeah. So we have to have a good aware campaigns, then trainings, then we have to remind people always. Yeah, mind is that kind of substance, if I can call it substance here. That's forgetting. In one hand, it's very good. Yeah, we forgetting bad things. On the other hand, yeah, we forgetting nice things, and why we say remind, mind remind. So we have to have a you have to have a well designed campaigns to talk to people about beneficial use and risks of technology, use technology in organizations, in private life, etc., etc. So again, yeah, what happened to people when we do too often those campaigns, we talk too much about that. Yeah, people switch off. People switch off. They get tired of the negative things. So campaigns must not be negative. They must be encouraging. They must be promoting. Must have that positive connotation. What happened? We every day we are bombarded now with some dangerous things. Yeah, Third World War is about to start now. Some asteroid is going to hit the Earth. Yeah, that is going to destroy Earth completely. Some deadly diseases spreading like a hell, etc., etc. The same with cybersecurity. We're just bombarding people with the dangerous thing. What happened? This and that, ransomware, etc., etc. So what people do? They shrug off and switch off. That we call cybersecurity fatigue. So we have to find a fine balance introducing cybersecurity and productivity. So you want to do your job. You don't want to fight with technology. So there is some notion of cybersecurity by design, cybersecurity that allow people to do their private things, they work, and then to make them secure. But at national level, we need those nicely designed cybersecurity campaigns that will explain people in a not frightening way what they can do to protect themselves. They will use technology anyway. So,
Mm.
so that's what should happen at the national and organizational level. Yeah. So
So the communication should be engaging and ongoing. It's not a once-off thing. We've got the set of rules and it stays in a cabinet somewhere, that you remind people of only when you employ them. It needs to be an ongoing awareness. And as we mentioned at the outset, it needs to become part of the culture of the organization, so that you get the buy in from your employees, and that, cybersecurity is at the forefront constantly. But you've got to do it in an engaging manner. So I want to move on to a next scenario. And again, I am staying with Facebook simply because it is the largest social media network and it seems to be the weakest link in cybercrime. So Facebook's terms and conditions forbid, amongst other things, harassment, um, threatening behavior, fraudulent behaviors, deception, misleading information, misinformation, anything that violates privacy and public rights of others, and illegal activity. So these are all things that's already built into Facebook's terms of service. But it would seem that even though it's in its terms of service, if it was enforced, we wouldn't have people getting scammed on Facebook. So my question to you is, if it seems that Facebook isn't enforcing its own terms of service by keeping people safe or users safe on its platform, could this possibly make the platform liable for a failure to protect its users? And should users have an expectation that Facebook should keep them safe?
Generally not. As you explained just now, yeah, some bot is responding to your complaint. So so platform cannot do that, yeah. But all these rich platforms, and Facebook is one of the richest organizations in the world, and the other ones, yeah, they will do anything to rid off liability. They're not liable. They will do anything. They will put you policies. They will, even if they are guilty, they will engage the best lawyers in the world. Yeah, we as individuals cannot match it. So we have not to rely. My point is not to rely much on them. They do what they can do, and what they say they can do. Anyway, by the way, they are doing many other things. When our privacy is in question, they're selling our data. You know what happened recently with the Cambridge Analytics, etc., etc. That's what we know. So we have not to rely on them. We are voluntarily supplying them with our information, even private information, that can be dangerous. They cannot prevent us to do that, yeah? And they don't want that liability. So you know that when you go to Cape Town and you park your car somewhere and you see that sign at the entrance to say you're parking at your own risk. So you're paying you know, and they're not liable. That's a similar thing. Yeah. You're using Facebook. This is a policy. By the way, their policy is a little bit easier to understand than Twitter policy, because it's written a little bit more in plain English. But again, yeah, they make it that way that they cannot be liable. They now paying some fines here because of European regulations. You know that, but it is now giants sue giants. European Union sues Facebook and they pay. As in an individual, you cannot do that. Yeah, you cannot make them liable. Not easily at least. So again, yeah, take your security in your hands. This is message to users.
I know, I think there needs to be so much more awareness created around this, because sometimes, you look at the posts that people make on Facebook, they disclose their exact location. They talk about their children. They talk about their immediate family members. They disclose personal information, and people are not aware that this puts them at risk. They basically put their entire lives on the social media platforms, and so people need to be aware that scammers are there. You may think you're posting it to your friends, but scammers are watching that information as well, and it's going to compromise your safety, your family's safety, your company's safety. So people just need to be a lot more aware. Moving away from the social media platforms a bit, scammers, again, it's syndicates. They're well organized. They work with military precision. They work 24/7. They've got technology that people are not aware of. They have voice altering technology. They have got access to whatever they need to manipulate us. So, bearing this in mind, in a company scenario, scammers are able to manipulate the to and from fields in emails. They're able to copy company stationery. And that is coming back to our first scenario where, fraud is committed because the employee wasn't, or the employee seem to think that the email came from the CEO. So this is the kind of thing that's very easy to do. What are the best practices that companies and employees could follow to avoid falling victim to this kind of cybercrime?
But there is something called a clean table. So first of all, do not leave anything that contains your information, private information, passwords, etc., etc., not on your desk, not on your computer screen. don't dispose that just you're throwing that in a dustbin, because there is something called hackers using something called dumpster diving. They go to rubbish, company rubbish, and they get some information from some documents that are thrown, etc., etc. So that's the first thing, and again, people must learn how to use technology safely, like anything else. So there is no silver bullet, not panacea. There is no panacea. That it's contextually dependent. How we train people in financial institutions is not the same like how we train people in retail. There's a big difference here, or high tech, etc., etc. So uh, again, yeah, people must go back and learn about cybersecurity culture, introduce that in the companies and in the nation, in the whole nation, citizens. So there is no so-called best practice. If it would be some best practice, we will just all switch to that. We wouldn't experiment with anything else. Just switch to best practice and that's it. Yeah. But there is no such a thing. We just call it, yeah, in academia, predominantly we call it a best practice, yeah, because it is kind of prevailing, but it can be completely wrong. Yeah. I believe that everything is contextual, that every organization and every nation must see how people use technology, and then to teach them how to use it securely. I don't know if I answered your question
Yes,
completely.
yes, you did. I think, one cannot reiterate enough how important it is to get educated in cybercrime, and that it has absolutely nothing to do with how educated you are, because you can have you can be educated in anything, but if you're not educated in cybercrime or scams, just by virtue of being online in any shape or form, can make you vulnerable to cybercrime. And so you need to know that if you're active on the internet, you open yourself up for cybercrime, and you need to be aware of this so that we develop that culture of awareness and being safe online, because you can trade safely online, but you just need to be aware of it. That I think is the biggest risk, is the fact that people have this belief that they are not at risk.
That's correct.
Um,
Yes, yes, carry on, please.
yeah. So basically, if we can change that mindset that you are at risk by virtue of the fact that you are online, and also move away from the line of thinking that stupid people get scammed. It's not stupid people. It's anyone online can get scammed, irrespective of your knowledge in other areas or field of training or education. So that to me is one of the things that I would like to get out there. Is there anything that you would like to add in closing?
Yeah, actually, you're right. We're going back here. Uh, I must confess now that cybersecurity professionals get hacked because we are human beings. We can be tired. We can be in any condition not to be here and now and click on something and oops. So it's not about education, not about intellect. It's about habits. Again, you're changing habits, changing behavior, changing culture. Humans are not easy to catch, but we have to do it cleverly, not to put them off, which is not easy, but that's one way to deal with human and to fetch them properly, to give them a proper knowledge, proper awareness, but applied awareness. To say that if it is not applied, it's nothing. But again, yeah, I want to stress again, uh, people do not have to fear technology, any technology. People have just to learn to use it beneficially and securely.
I think that's a great note to end this conversation on. Zoran, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and your insight. And to our audience, I want to say thank you to each one of you who's been watching this on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. Please share this information. It's something that anyone and everyone that on the internet needs to know about. So thank you for watching. Remember to do good stuff. Remember that just by being on the internet, you open yourself up to cybercrime, and let's keep each other informed and aware, one conversation at a time. Thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you very
Goodbye
much,
for
Bridgetti.
now.
Bye.